It's the tariffs today that are falling to pieces. He doesn't have to back down this time because the court have essentially slapped him before he did.
Yeah, I mean, I think, James, it is almost impossible to overstate what the court in Manhattan last night did. This International Trade Court, it is a US federal court, a 3-judge bipartisan panel, and unanimously they said to Donald Trump, you did not have the legal authority to do what you did on Liberation Day. Remember, April the 2nd, he walked into the Rose Garden of the White House, engaged in that kind of Eurovision Song Contest presentation of his reciprocal tariffs, revealing nation by nation, percentage point by percentage point, the impact that his government was about to have, devastating impact on economies all over the world. And of course, promised Americans not only that was Liberation Day, but it was the turnaround. He had said on Air Force One just a few days prior, you're going to get so rich as a result of these tariffs, you're not even going to know how to spend all of the money. And this 3-judge court last night said, sorry, mate, America's not actually a dictatorship. You do not have the legal...
Well, they didn't say yet, did they?
They didn't say
yet.
Say
yes.
Right, exactly. You didn't have the legal authority to do what you did under the terms of the law that he cited, the International Economic Emergency Powers Act. Yeah. It's a 1977 law that was designed to regulate the economy during a time of absolute national emergency. And Donald Trump has grabbed that law and used it as justification, saying that we are under economic attack from countries all over the world that have spent decades ripping America off. I need to use these extraordinary powers to impose these tariffs. And the court has said, sorry, that's not permissible. Only Congress has the authority to impose and regulate tariffs. You don't get to do this by signing an executive order in the White House. And this is a stunning decision. It's not clear that the White House was ready for it yesterday. They immediately launched an appeal against it. And of course, like so many other legal rulings that have gone against the administration, this is a big one, and it's going to set the stage for the ultimate showdown between Donald Trump and the courts, whether it's on tariffs, whether it's on his decision to use the Foreign Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to engage in mass deportations, on a whole array of issues, the shutdown of government departments, the firing of hundreds of thousands of federal workers, many of which have been overturned by the courts. All of these cases are now heading down parallel paths to an ultimate showdown with the judiciary. And as you and I have discussed before, the ultimate story of Donald Trump's second term in office will be determined by whether he adheres to court rulings or simply steamrollers them.
Judiciary, academia, media. You can't be a fascist, you can't become a dictator unless you've got all three of those phenomena dancing to your tune. And he's trying his damnedest to get all three of them in position.
Yeah, and what is so interesting about this court decision is that essentially the court is saying, you've done these tariffs the wrong way. There is a mechanism for doing some of these tariffs, and it's important, I think, to underscore that it's only the Liberation Day tariffs that are affected by this decision. So the earlier tariffs on steel, aluminium, foreign cars, car parts that are imported into the United States, those stay because he used different legal authorities to justify those tariffs. He could, if he wanted to, have gone to Congress with a package of proposed tariffs and said to Congress, this is what I want to do. And then Congress, in time-honored fashion, would have discussed it and legislated on it and voted on it. And he may have got some of them through. But in Donald Trump's world, that's hard work. That's hard graft.
You think it's that simple?
And he wants to do an end run around Congress on everything.
Now.
He wants a superannuated executive. He wants an all-powerful presidency. And so he's decided to wander down this road. But on this occasion, he's been upended by the courts. And now he's being given 10 days to unwind these tariffs or face legal sanctions.
And crucially, the case was launched by US businesses and states. It's not sort of Hillary Clinton continuity party or pesky lefties or students. It is US states and US businesses explaining to the court that he has absolutely kebabbed them.
Well, and also, of course, because US businesses understand the logic that economists advance that is completely rejected by Donald Trump, that tariffs are going to lead to price inflation, supply chain issues. Even Donald Trump himself has conceded that the golden age that he has articulated that America is on the brink of achieving is still going to lead American parents this Christmas only to be able to buy a couple of dolls for their kids, not 30, because the prices are going to go up as a result of his tariffs. This court ruling completely upends the trade negotiations that are underway with the European Union.
And dozens of others.
And China as well, negotiations there. And I think it raises questions about the US-UK economic prosperity deal, which, let's remember, our own Prime Minister hailed alongside Donald Trump, in that speakerphone conversation just 3 weeks ago. I mean, the carve-outs for steel, aluminium and 100,000 British cars every year going into the United States remain. But that deal acknowledged the 10% reciprocal baseline tariffs on everything else would remain in force. Trump's now being given 10 days to unwind those 10% tariffs. And also, James, it was only earlier this week that Lord Mandelson made a speech in Washington, D.C., engaging in a pretty extraordinary soft soap routine towards President Donald Trump, paying tribute to what Lord Mandelson, the British ambassador to Washington, described as Donald Trump's acute political instincts. Well, the court in this ruling was clearly not acknowledging that Donald Trump has acute political instincts and was basically saying he's a wannabe dictator and we're going to stop him.
And we're all that can stop him. I mean, Mandelson's in D.C. to do a job,
yes,
isn't he? And that job is to try to keep Trump sweet, even as he embarks upon ever more unprecedented acts, which you chronicle quite perfectly. Of course, the man that was also supposed to deliver epic financial benefits to ordinary Americans, Elon Musk, he's been handed his sandwiches wrapped in a roadmap.
Well, he's bowed to the inevitable. I mean, I see that the website Politico this morning is reporting that you could hear champagne corks popping all over Washington in the corridors of power with the news that Elon Musk has made it official. He is departing the president's inner circle, abandoning his efforts at engaging in any kind of governing after, of course, he famously brought his chainsaw to Washington, D.C., a literal chainsaw that he was prancing around on the stage, boasting about, even as he was eviscerating hundreds of thousands of federal government jobs, consigning the U.S. Agency for International Development, as he put it, to the wood chipper. One government department alone, the disappearance of which, according to Boston University School of Public Health, is resulting in 103 deaths worldwide every hour because USAID's programs of development and humanitarian assistance have come to a crashing halt. He's left with a bit of a challenge to Donald Trump, criticising Donald Trump's proposed tax cuts, saying that they are going to fuel the deficit, saying that his public expenditure requests in his budget bill that he submitted to Congress will fuel deficits and will only serve to undo the good that he, Elon Musk, claims to have done through his campaign.
To have done. So let's have a look at that, because he told us, or he told Americans he'd save $2 trillion.
And he saved, he hasn't saved $1.8 trillion. So he saved about $200 billion by his own numbers.
So that's his numbers.
And those numbers need to be held up to sunlight as well. Yes. Absolutely. So he has.
So tiny percentage, even if he was telling the truth, which is far from certain of what he promised he would achieve.
Yeah,
this would peak Trump. How could they possibly have fallen out? They're peas in a pod.
It is tempting to say that his time running the Department of Government Efficiency, which of course is not really a government department, was a failure because he didn't come close to saving the $2 trillion that he promised. And in those terms, it is. But I think it's also important to underscore, first of all, the hundreds of thousands of lives he's upended over the course of the last, 120 odd days. But also the fact that he has engaged in substantial personal enrichment as a result of the position that he enjoyed there.
Yeah, and speaking of substantial personal enrichment, David Frum, who's a writer I admire enormously, has written a characteristically packed piece for the Atlantic website, which in some ways made me wonder whether we overthink things, Simon, and overcomplicate and look for the master plan and look for the hidden agenda, whereas in fact, as Frum writes, he is simply taking self-enrichment to a scale never seen before in America. And never mind the judges, never mind the fascism, never mind the laws. For Trump and his closest family and cronies, it's all about the Benjamins.
It's all about the money. I mean, and it is completely unprecedented. We've never seen personal enrichment like this. Trump and his family made $2.9 billion out of one thing, the meme coin that he and Melania launched in the days leading up to the inauguration. They got out of it in time. They pocketed the money. 764,000 Americans lost everything that they put into the meme coin. And that's just one area of enrichment. If you look at the recent travel to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, it was preceded by travel to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE by Donald Trump Jr., who was signing business deals all over the region for the Trump organization. We haven't seen any of the kabuki this time around that we saw in 2017 when Trump signed those documents. Do you remember he was in that room with the huge binders next to him, and he signed documents that the American people were told meant that he was recusing himself from any control over his business empire. Of course, reporters in the room asked to see the documents and were told, oh, no, you can't look at them, they're confidential. Many reporters in the room concluded that the documents, these binders full of paper, were actually blank pieces of paper, that there was nothing there. But at least they went through the kabuki.
Feels like the good old days.
This time round, not even a pretense.
Oh, there you go,
not
jinx.
A pretense.
Padlock
Absolutely.
1, 2, 3. From writes, nothing like this has been attempted or even imagined in the history of the American presidency. Throw away the history books, discard feeble comparisons to scandals of the past. There is no analogy with any previous action by any past president, and this bit really stings. The brazenness of the self-enrichment resembles nothing seen in any earlier White House. This is American corruption on the scale of a post-Soviet republic or a post-colonial African dictatorship.
Well, it's a golden age for him and his family and for the people in his inner circle, and to some extent for Elon Musk, who has secured all of these new contracts for Starlink. And of course, SpaceX is at the center of, NASA's efforts to try and get to Mars and all of that kind of stuff. But it's absolutely not a golden age for millions of Americans who backed him for a second term in the White House and are now being told you're not going to be able to afford Christmas presents for your kids.
And final question, because you've got to limber up for your performance later. What are they realising this? Is there buyer's remorse? Or I mean,
there is some indication in some polling data that in many parts of the country, people who voted for Donald Trump are moving away from Donald Trump. But there is not data to suggest that that movement is happening at the clip the Democrats need in the key battleground states where the midterm elections are going to be fought next November and where 2028 is going to be fought or won, assuming we have a free and fair election in the United States, both next November and in November of 2028. Yeah. And, I cannot overstate the extent to which Democrats and their leaders have basically become irrelevant in the minds of Americans and are struggling to secure any moment, any brief moment in the Klieg lights of media attention, because to come back to where we started, Trump understands the tsunami of activity, even when it's negative for him, like this court ruling. It takes all the attention away from everybody else, and those Klieg lights remain firmly on him, which is just the way he likes it.
Good Lord. Apart from that, it's all going brilliantly.
Absolutely. Can't wait.